Fred was one of the first, if not the first, YouTube celebrity. I remember seeing him on the news in 2008 and feeling jealous that he was getting millions of views for running around screaming while my review videos got none. He was even the first YouTuber to reach 1 million subscribers. With such a huge fan base, it was only a matter of time before someone milked Fred for all he was worth, and that's exactly what Nickelodeon did. Starting in 2010, Nick produced 3 original Fred movies, followed by Fred the Show in 2012. With millions of pre-existing fans, these projects were destined to be massive hits, right? Well, not exactly. Something clearly wasn't clicking with audiences. To put into perspective how poorly the Fred franchise was performing, Fred the movie had a budget of just $4 million and somehow only made $1.3 million worldwide according to Box Office Mojo. That's absolutely terrible. That is a massive flop. So what went wrong? What made the franchise so hated by fans? I decided to watch Fred the Show as an adult to see just how terrible it really is. I've seen the movies a few times in the past and remember them well enough to judge them fairly, so I will not be putting myself through that again. All of my comments are directly about Fred the Show, but they translate over to Fred the movie as well, as the franchise had a clear vibe across all the movies and the show. They kind of all felt like each other. And after watching Fred the Show as an adult, I couldn't help but notice the strange dynamic between Fred and Kevin. Kevin being Fred's bully. Their relationship seems to have an underlying tension, almost as if they're hidden lovers who are too afraid to confront their feelings. Nearly every plot revolves around Fred's interactions with Kevin, whether he's trying to babysit Kevin, wrestle Kevin in bed, or Fred's obsessive need to make Kevin his best friend. The way Kevin masks his possible affection with hostility only adds to the bizarre nature of their bond. I swear Kevin loves Fred and hides it with hate. And then there's Fred's voice, easily one of the most annoying aspects of the show. While I eventually adjusted to it after prolonged exposure, every time I took a break and then came back to the show, it's like starting all over again. The annoyance doesn't just fade, it comes back in full force every time you take a break from the show, making each viewing session a test of patience. And adding to the annoyance and confusion is Fred's inconsistent behavior with the camera. He occasionally breaks the fourth wall, talking directly to the audience as if he's vlogging, but then he spends the rest of the episode acting like the cameras aren't even there. This inconsistency just makes me wonder, does Fred have momentary amnesia where he occasionally forgets the cameramen are there? Does he have schizophrenia and he's just speaking to no one and the cameras aren't even there within the world of the show? What does this mean? Does he think he's on a documentary and he's good at ignoring the cameras? What the hell? But amidst the chaos, there is one surprising bright spot. The actor who plays Kevin. Despite the show's shortcomings, he gives a committed performance. He is fully dedicated to bringing Kevin to life in a way that only he can. Every time he's on screen, he is acting his heart out and his dedication to the role stands out. However, the humor that made the original Fred videos so popular is largely missing in the show. There are brief moments when the spirit of the old Fred shines through, but they're few and far between. As the show progresses, it does start to find its groove a little bit, and the humor becomes a bit more bearable. Although I have a theory that the show was slowly killing my brain cells to bring me down to its level, and that's why I started laughing at it over time. There's one episode where Fred mistakes a bank robber for his driving instructor, and he helps him rob the bank. It manages to pull off a few genuine laughs. And something else that had me laughing was the casting choice of Flo from Progressive playing Kevin's mom. Every time Fred went over to Kevin's house and Flo answered the door, it was extremely hard not to expect her to start selling Fred car insurance. It's a strange, almost distracting addition to the show, but I can't say I hated it. Something I can say I hated was Fred's fashion sense throughout the show. His general outfit consists of extremely tight jeans that are just so uncomfortably snug. His crotch is always on full display, and I'm kinda sick of it. And his special outfits for themed episodes are just as ridiculous. Despite Fred and Kevin being only 17 and 8 18 respectively during the filming of this show. Their outfits make them look like 30-year-olds trying to pass as teens, reminiscent of the Hello Fellow Kids meme. This awkward styling only adds to the overall weirdness of the entire show. And finally, the reliance on gross-out humor is another major issue I had with the show. Most of it is off-putting and unnecessary, though I have to admit, there was this one scene where Kevin shits himself on purpose to force Fred to clean it up, and that made me laugh. It's one of the few moments where the gross-out humor actually works. I was giggling to myself. But still, there's too much gross-out humor, and most of it is absolutely disgusting and unnecessary. It all seemed like a safe bet. Nickelodeon would sign Fred, his millions of fans would flock to see his movies and show, and everyone would profit. But Nick miscalculated one thing. Fred was only palatable in 3-minute chunks. His humor wasn't digestible for full-length films or a TV series. The idea of putting Fred in 3 feature-length films was ludicrous. And something that always confused me, why did Nickelodeon give him 2 follow-up movies and a TV show if his first movie lost $2.8 million? Maybe they made a lot of money off merchandise? But I remember hearing that Lucas, the person who played Fred, signed a contract with Nickelodeon that guaranteed 3 movies and a series. So maybe Nick was stuck producing other Fred content even after the first movie majorly flopped. Again, I don't really have a source for this. I couldn't find anything online, but I remember hearing this back in the day. Even as a cult classic, it's hard to recommend the Fred franchise. Very few parts are actually funny, and even then, my sense of humor may have been warped by the show itself. The acting is a bit hilarious, but the annoyance factor is enough to make anyone want to rip their hair out. I can't in good conscience recommend this to anyone. Although Fred had millions of fans, he simply didn't translate well to a movie or TV series. And due to the production time, the second and third movies, as well as the TV show, released after Fred's popularity was already dying out. Fred was already on his way out the door, and the movies were getting bombed by reviewers. A recipe for disaster. Looking back, the Fred franchise was loud, annoying, gross, bizarre, and filled with plenty of other negative adjectives. The comedy didn't fit well into long-form media, the script and story were useless almost all of the time, and Fred was already losing relevancy by the time the content was released. The entire franchise just felt unnecessary. It's easy to see why the Fred franchise failed, and I most certainly do not think this show is a diamond in the rough. If you watch this far, consider checking out my other videos and maybe subscribing. Alright, thanks for listening.